Hello, thank you. Today about what prompts one to start spiritual practice and glimpses of enlightenment that come throughout one's lifetime. This video is a response to some interaction with the viewers about showing a bit of interest in maybe my personal history and how some things transpired inside this lifetime to get me to start spiritual practice and then talk about it and try and relate it to other people. Thank you. It's been very interesting. I've been sitting on this for a couple of days, and I tell you, I've discovered a few things myself. Because these days, you see, I just look at this person as some physical form, that I'm attached to at this point in time. There were other physical forms that I was attached to at different points in time. And don't feel such a personal sort of connection or attachment to it anymore. So it was really an interesting sort of a couple of days, just sitting on it, contemplating who knows what, something out of this lifespan, lifetime, life cycle. Anyway, let me put together a few findings. Now, I'm going to relate this as parts of my personal history from this lifetime. So the reason for it, apart from interaction with my viewers, is that actually people might find some sort of a points in it that relate to their own journey, to their own sort of glimpses of enlightenment, as I call them now, when I sort of understand a bit more about what is happening. Let me put it this way. I always knew I was different. I didn't know different in what way, but different, definitely, from a very early age. And I always made an effort to hide this difference from the outside, to appear as sort of normal as possible on the outside and stuff like that, because a lot of these sort of differences were quite sort of stark. A lot of them appeared as what I call today knowing, and I know is knowing of the mind. So I just knew beyond any doubt. I never doubted what I knew. For example, I knew that when I looked at myself, so-called self, in the mirror, that wasn't me. I knew that I lived before, that there were previous lifetimes. I knew that I was a dog in one of the previous lifetimes. I knew that everything on this surface level doesn't really matter much. I also knew that at any point in time, I have a knowing of everything. There is a knowing of everything available, but I just don't know a way to access it. I haven't yet found a way to access it, but I always knew that the knowing was there. So you see, these glimpses of the knowing of the mind that are coming from deep inside the mind, somehow through to the surface level and being sort of related in mental concepts. I also could never fit anywhere. I could not relate to small talk. I could not relate to interactions on a surface level. Could not relate much at all to the happenings on the surface level. And also, I always had a fascination with reflections. I used to travel on the train a lot, and I always looked at reflections much more than I looked at actual physical objects. And I always felt and was drawn into them, and I felt that they were more real than the physical objects, and so on and so on. There are many of these things that sort of made me stand apart from the sort of rest as, people around me, or whatever I could sort of access at the time as people around me, environment, and so on and so on. I never paid any attention to sort of time. Like, for all these years, I never sort of, for example, celebrate birthdays because I don't feel that they've got anything to do with me whatsoever. I don't sort of pay any attention to these so-called happenings on a surface level, like passing of the years, certain events, and so on and so on. Oh, look, there are many of these things. Anyway, many. Then, of course, apart from these pieces of knowing that come from deep inside the mind, there are always, of course, experiences, two different experiences. Like, I had a few out-of-body experiences from the early age on, when I was just separated myself from the body, completely out of control. I could not control it. I never knew when it was going to happen and stuff like that. And I was sort of just somewhere above, looking at everything underneath, including so-called self and everything else. Then I had these openings in sort of the on the surface level, like something was going on or happening on the surface level, and all of a sudden it would open, it would like crack open, and the time would sort of stop. I have no, it's very hard to describe it with words anyway. There was no time, there was nothing, there was no movement. Even if there was movement, it was very slowed down, and there was this sort of a buzz, like experiencing everything and sort of being aware of everything on a much deeper level, on a much more detail. I had quite a few of these experiences too, even sometimes when other people were around, and it was sort of quite interesting. I just sort of tried to sort of keep myself in some sort of a acceptable manner on a surface level. And so on and so on. Another thing that was very interesting, because I always knew that, this sort of persona, this sort of a person at a time is not myself. I changed it very often. I changed it sometimes completely from one extreme to another. Sometimes I changed environment very often. I changed what I did very often. I changed the way I relate to things very often. And whatever I did or wherever I went, whatever situations I was in, and I was in so many different situations, I faced so many so-called failures on a surface level, so much suffering on a surface level, that sometimes I thought they were like many lifetimes, like compacted into one lifespan, like a lot of bad karma sort of being lived through, like compacted, in a very short periods of time, I would never have thought that it was possible to jam it all in sort of one lifetime. And then when the circumstances sort of aligned themselves in a way that I could actually just drop everything more or less and completely dedicate myself to my experiences, to my knowing, to deepen it, to start spiritual practice, I went into it earnestly. I just felt like really going home finally, like really reaching somewhere home, being on a path, and especially when I entered the path, it was just going home really, finally, and understanding much more. Since I've been doing this regular spiritual practice, a lot of things that I've experienced before and knowing that I had from throughout my this life cycle started to make complete sense, and everything fell into place. And then I encountered and seen more and more images on the inside, on the path, so I could understand things deeper and much more, and everything sort of is falling into place, which is really such a great homecoming. And now I'm sort of part of the stream. I don't really sort of plan anything. I don't sort of know what's going to happen tomorrow in a few hours' time. And it's not really important, because being part of the stream is being part of the mind on a deeper level, and just going with it, whatever it takes you, wherever it takes you. And I have a complete trust in it, that I know that everything I do is not going to be harmful in any shape or form to anyone, and that it's all in sync with the natural mind. And the natural state of mind is not on a surface level. That's why I could never really connect with people, because I was always sort of dwelling a bit under the surface level. I was sort of venturing out onto the surface level and putting in an effort to sort of be somehow operational on a surface level, and I did quite a good job of it to a certain extent. But then I sort of, whenever I could, I went back into my natural state of mind, which was always a bit below the surface level. That's why I could never ever engage in earnestly in sort of so-called small talk and all this nonsense and gossip going on the surface level, all these, I don't know, talks about things that have absolutely no importance and absolutely trivial and sort of frivolous even, or just sort of crap, sorry about the word. Anyway, so part of the stream being, and even before I actually entered the stream, I had this, just some sort of a knowing too, if you want to call it, that, sharing all these experiences, although even when they didn't make much sense, sharing these experiences with other people who might have other experiences like similar, which is not really something we go and talk to about other people, because they might sort of, stamp us as loonies and sort of, not there, and all these sorts of negative things straight away, and it's not helpful. And might help people to understand that the things that are happening, these experiences and this sort of a knowing is actually just the knowing coming up on the surface level from deep inside the mind. Because you see, mind knows. Deep inside the mind, in the still part of mind, there is the knowing of the mind. Everything is there. Everything. Anyway, this is just a little bit of something from my personal history, maybe not a lot, but I thought that just things that are important to my relating to you, or talking about things that might help other people, be helpful to them on their journey, to understand that the experiences that might have, although they don't make sense, they will make sense once they start a spiritual practice, once they start doing it on a regular basis. Everything will start making sense, everything will fall into place, and it will be a real proper homecoming, And again, thank you for all interactions. They really help a lot. Hopefully both sides, me and you, and everything, is there is no me and you anyway, but just everything. Take care. Bye-bye.